If you're moving from a role either internally or moving to a different job, and you're going from a position where you're a product owner to being a product manager, one of the first things I would expect that you're going to deal with is you're going from a place where you were assigned things to a place where you either have to choose the best options or you have to make a case to get something new, whereas you didn't do that when you were a PO. And I want to start with it. I have two parts to this. I have teams is one part of this, and the other part of this is products and features. I want to start with teams because I feel the majority of people that step into product owner positions, it goes something like this. Hey, Stormy, welcome to our company, and here's your team. They're the ones that are going to be delivering your product. Make it happen. Or the other case is like, Stormy, thanks for being a hardworking PO on our team. We're going to give you this other team now, and you'll have two teams. You are assigned things. Rather than they come to you and say, what would be the best case, and work with you to either scale or divide the business or segment things inside the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I will say, I know I really do. And so what I would say is I would agree with you that is the most common scenario. I would also say in my experience, and my product owner experience is far more than my product management experience. From a product owner experience, that is the most common, right? So you're a product owner, you started a company and they say, here's your team, right? Or here's your multiple teams.
You're right.
You're right. So no choices given, figure it out. You learn what they know, where they're at, how they work, current state, and fix it. What I can say is to agree with you that seems to be the most common way in which that allocation of duties is done in regards to teams assigned to POs. However, the best case scenario, and what I have seen most positively, and this does take some risk on the part of leadership at your organization, but it is allowing your team, once we have developed a little bit of a relationship and we have a clear vision and strategy in place, so we need to know those things, and our product person also has a very clear vision of where we're going with this product, right? So those things have to be in place. Once that happens, I happen to be in an organization where we had 6 different product owners, and we essentially pitched to the 5 development teams that at that point were assigned, and we're basically just kind of struggling along with what they could do, as much as they could do, without a whole lot of guidance, without that North Star, or really knowing exactly what they were working towards. So the product owners came in, they pitched their, explained their background, pitched their product vision, and there were also some leadership guidance given in regards to how teams needed to be evened out in regards to experience. We needed to make sure that we had someone front end, back end, designs, QA, so on and so forth. After we gave our pitches and this was after we had gone through a lot of pre-work, working with the leadership, going through the roadmap and figuring out what needed to be done, in what order, what we were passionate about, what we wanted to do, and what we felt like we could bring the most value to. So then we came up with our pitch, and then we allowed every one of those developers in the room to go around to the tables, ask us questions, clarify things, and then move on and decide, what interests me. And there was only one team that started as that team and stayed as that team. They didn't move anybody. They'd been working together for several years. Every other team had actually been hired on fairly new within the year or so prior, most of them less than that. And every other one of them actually jumped ship to some degree or another. And then what we found was they also realized that, hey, we don't have balance here in regards to experience, or we're not meeting the full stack needs that we need so that we can reduce the dependencies that we would have on these other teams. And if that were the case, then we said, all right, we're going to give you another half an hour, 45 minutes. Everybody walk around and see how we can balance this out. And they did. So leadership reserved the right to say, if you can't get this done at the end, we will switch people out. They didn't have to. We had adults in the room. They knew what needed to be done. They were passionate about getting this done correctly. And some of them went and said, you know what, I'm more senior. I'm seeing a whole bunch of junior developers over there. Let me switch. They need me. And there was no intervention that needed to be had. Now, I would say that's the exception to the rule, but I cannot profess more only how positive that was in so many ways that were even intangible, in the sense that it was immediately empowering of our teams. They were immediately bought in. It was theirs. It became their baby, right? And we were all already feeling like part of the same team. So my point is, when it comes to teams, there are multiple ways of doing things. The simplest thing is to just hire a PO and say, here's your team, fix it.
Yeah.
But there's other ways that can be approached, and as a PO or even a PM, you can advocate for that. Don't know how far you'll get. It really depends on, the culture of the organization, but there's other options there.
I was going to ask, what triggered the shakeup, the team reformation event that you described?
So remember, this was greenfield. So they just basically hired a team in, and then they just hired the next group of 6 came in. They were the next team, and the next group of 6 that came in that were next team. So they were immediately imbalanced, and we didn't have all of the product owners already hired. So we didn't have that alignment in regards to this and overall vision and strategy. And then that roadmap that was broken out from that over, that long-term roadmap. Once they had the product owners hired, and we had created a solid vision, that North Star, truly that one that everybody could look through. Yes, is our sprint and product goal moving towards that, right? Once we had those in place, then it made sense for us to rearrange, and it made more sense, or we made a bet to say, how about we, instead of doing this command and control and saying, you go here, you go here, you go here. At this point, they'd had enough time to learn each other, to learn each other's personalities, to learn who was good at what, who was interested in what, and they allowed them to choose and truly self-organize their teams.
Yeah.
And it worked so well.
It sounds like there was some kind of leadership initiative to move their products from whatever the way they were before to some kind of future state.
Yes. So they were moving from this, and I will tell you, they were very driven for a very specific reason. And usually it always comes down to money, and this time it absolutely did.
Yep.
So they had internal servers. They had a big logo they signed. They did not realize the impact that they're working in insurance. So if you're not familiar, insurance has an open enrollment and generally have the most activity in your in that very short period of time every year. It crashed their internal servers for 2 weeks, which was devastating.
A crisis.
Literally crisis for this company.
Okay.
So it was that crisis that led to, all right, we need to invest in making this and making sure this never ever happens again.
Never pass up a good crisis. Never let a good crisis go to waste. There's a famous quote about that. It was Churchill.
Okay.
Boy, never let a good crisis go to waste.
And they didn't, and that really was the driving factor. They lost and a whole lot of lost revenue and lost face. So but it could have been prevented. I mean, these were things that could have been mitigated ahead of time. And it was also a very old application that had been built on and built on and built on and built on and needed to be cleaned up, right? So it was my job to go in there and understand those personas, the workflows, and the problems each individual persona was having with their workflows, and then prioritize those. And that led actually to our roadmap and how we were going to implement this incrementally across the year. But yes, I was fortunately assigned one team. Each of us product owners were assigned one team, which is ideal. Yeah. There was no lack of work with just one team. And my VP of product, who I adore, but he was we did not have product managers, and he was the one that acted in that role. He was also the one that was the buffer and the protector to educate us where we needed to be educated, but to protect us from those business needs that would impact prioritization potentially. He wanted us shielded from any of those outside, very, very what's in it for me type of requests, so that we could look at it holistically and prioritize in that way. And it worked really, really well. We were very successful.
Let's stick with the being assigned category of kind of the main difference of what I see between POs and PMs as a job, basically. Well, POs and PMs, I feel when you're new at your job, you're going to get assigned either way. But I feel when you're a PO, you get assigned, like, this is your product. Here's your product. Or if you're lucky enough to work for a big company, like Twitter or Facebook, hey guys, you're the PM of this feature. Like, you're the PM of, I don't know, what's a feature on Facebook? Like your drunken uncle posting racist things? Like, what's a feature on Facebook? I don't even know what features are on Facebook anymore. I don't know. I have no idea.
It could be literally like the like button could be a feature.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right?
Timeline.
Like,
I guess. Yeah, something like that. So I think like, hey, here's your little feature, and then the difference now between a PM and a PO is we welcome all feedback, but it's not appreciated. That's the way I feel. So like, in a PO role, it's like, hey, I know you got great ideas about stuff that's outside of your wheelhouse, but keep it to yourself. Like that. When there has been a job role called product owner that I have observed, that has been the way it's treated. Stay in your lane. You
mean coming from the PM to the PO?
Yes. Yeah. Because in the PM, for like in my experience as a PM, like and this is going to our next category a little early. Like the next category is being involved in business strategy, right? So it's difficult to ignore business strategy and ignore, I was going to say viewership, like, I don't know, monthly active users, stuff like that. Like usage of my corner of the world is down. Well, that's not your problem.
Just analytics in general.
Like general analytics, like there's very little you can do unless you're like the PM of growth or something like that. And you just go, like your whole job is going to other PMs and be like, you need to do this, you need to do this, whatever. I guess what I'm saying is your ability to affect the whole, like the entire product. Again, assuming your product is just one little tiny product inside of a giant suite of products, or your product is one feature inside of a larger product. We use Facebook, for example. I know they're called Meta. I don't care. You probably recently have got fired from Meta, so stop complaining. For example, if you're the PM of Marketplace, you probably have a whole bunch of concerns that the PM of Timelines doesn't really care about, because they're never going to go to your area.
Right.
They don't see your roadmap. It's so busy with their own stuff and their own teams, they're never going to look at your roadmap.
Probably not a whole lot of dependencies there.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. Your product or your segment of the product, you have blinders on. You're very limited, where you don't really get to play in the entire suite, the entire area. That would be the big difference between product owners and product managers to me.
I would agree. And so I just recently started a new role as a product manager. And fortunately, I work for a fantastic VP of product who is very astute in regards to marketing in particular. He's trained in the Pragmatic Marketing Institute, which actually there's some real benefits to. I think it's a little beyond where more than I want to delve into, at least currently.
Yeah.
But considering where we are currently in our very infancy of moving towards that product-led organization, I'm really jumping more into that product owner role because I need the teams who need me right now internally. That said, I'm leaning a lot on my VP of product, who I fortunately am able to learn a lot from. So I'm very fortunate in that respect. And this is what gave me agita coming in and going, I haven't really been trained as a product manager. And there is this huge gap between, working with the teams and being completely separated from the business. Very little, other than if you have business coming down and saying, metrics, capacity and velocity and blah, blah, blah. But there's such a different set of knowledge that needs to be learned, experienced from the product management perspective, and how that ties into product overarching and impacts development. So understanding the market, understanding the product market fit, understanding or potentially completing win-loss analysis. So kind of, why are you winning these? Why are you losing these? What can we learn from this? So things that I haven't done before, I'm on my way to learning them. But I think that it's that separation between far more business, marketing, sales, analytics, and making sure that we have a viable product that will be viable in another 5 years. And then working with leadership, senior leadership, executive leadership, and saying, what is that vision? Yeah. Where are we actually going to be? Where do you want to be? And what's that strategy?
If people could only listen to a 60-second little snippet of the podcast, that would be the snippet I want them to listen to. Is like, hey, if you're going from a PO role, or like a lot of times people are in the PO role, is because they've just gotten their start. They've just gotten their start. I got my start as a product owner. That was the title. Actually, my job title wasn't even product owner. I inherited a product owner job title in addition to my other job titles, because hey, we wear lots of hats when we don't want to pay people.
Right.
But that was I was product owner, and to me, the difference between product owner and product manager is everything you just said. It's all this stuff that has to do with business strategy, and I didn't realize it until years later from the experience. I was like, why did the people I work for intentionally keep me out of talking about pricing, talking about go-to-market, talking about finding a user base, talking about, and I realized it was because they were tiny, egotistical people with their own problems. Okay, that's not helpful to anyone, because everyone's like, oh, that doesn't help me in my job. That I just had a bunch of people that couldn't, they just wanted control and they couldn't let go. There's no way I can edit this into a 60-second clip. That like the people I'm working for, just that they needed to have control. They wanted to be in the business strategy. They didn't want to feel like they were left out. They didn't want to show. Actually, let me wheel it back for a second. Go to a super large organization where everyone's trying to move up the ladder, like a Big Four, where everyone's trying to make that senior manager to director jump, trying to make partner in 7 years or whatever. That doesn't look like their idea, that they can't, like their win. They can't chalk it into their column as their win. They're going to push you out of. So
throw you under the bus, ignore you, make sure you're excluded. Yeah, it's all about me, what I did, make sure my name's on it.
So I couldn't move up. I couldn't, and again, I didn't, at the time, I was just, I'm really busy because I'm a product owner. I've got the team delivering stuff. I've got my own deliverables. I've got my pieces of the roadmap I'm trying to grab onto and help my team. I've got customers I'm going in front of on a regular basis that I'm trying to keep happy. I've got stakeholders I'm trying to align and keep happy. I'm doing, like if you read the Melissa Perry Build Trap book, I'm doing operations. I'm operating like there is no tomorrow. I'm trying to make everybody happy. I'm trying to keep, I'm spinning all these plates. I'm juggling all these balls in the air, all the euphemisms for everything I'm doing. But you know what I'm not doing? Not doing strategy. So when the executives say, hey, we've decided we don't need this team, we're going to cut that whole team over there. And now you're blindsided and your whole team's blindsided. Well, you shouldn't have been blindsided, because you should have been looking at those metrics the whole time as a product manager. You and the executives at that company should have been straight enough with you to say, hey, what this product line is bringing in, like we see it being cannibalized over the next 2-3 years by the other products that we're promoting and the other things that we want to promote. So I don't see this product or this team sticking around for 2 years. So let's talk about an end of life strategy. No, instead of doing that, it's all a secret. I remember after going through a corporate merger one time, I had a budget, and then after the corporate merger, HR was like, well, you're not going to have a budget anymore. It's going to be managed by your manager, because they're the right people to do that. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And that means you want the department to go away. That's what that means. That's what that meant. Okay, but like again, it's HR, so they're just carrying out the orders of the executive. They're just doing what they're told. Here we go, going back to the basics. If it seems like people are not being transparent with you, there's a reason. And like, you should flee that structure. You should take the experience you already have and say, hey, I know how to operate. We're going to go back to the build trap. I know how to operate. Right? I can do this tactical stuff. I can do this operation stuff. And I'd like to be in the strategy realm a little bit more. I'd like to drive around the organization, talk to sales, talk to different departments, maybe talk to different customers that don't necessarily use them, or maybe they use a competitor product or whatever when you're doing competitor analysis. Talk to a couple people, maybe go to some networking events, fly out, go visit some customers, stuff like that. And I'd like to be involved in understanding the strategy level. And I feel like this is the big for me. If you're a product owner and you're assigned a team and you're assigned a feature or you're assigned a product, you know what I mean, or a sub-product or a larger product or whatever, your interaction with the strategy setting tier of the organization, they're probably going to keep you out of it. And it's going to stunt your career by them keeping you out of it. Even if you just go to the meetings and listen to how things get discussed and kind of what they look at to make decisions, that will help you. If they completely keep you out of that, you'll have no idea what data is used, no idea what exercises are used, or who they talk to, or how they do it. You'll have no idea. So when you go to bridge the gap of what we're talking about, when you go to bridge the gap of, hey, I'm in a PO role and now someone is hiring me to be a PM, and day one they're going to be like, okay, cool, let me introduce you to the strategy layer and let me tell you how you're going to plug into the strategy layer, and you're going to sit there and you're going to go,
what?
Huh? I don't.
Yeah.
What is?
Like, I literally had to Google win-loss analysis. That's like, see, I'm not even kidding. There is not a clear delineation between product management and product owner. There is an overlap there, and should absolutely be a coordination. And even so far as having developer, or maybe it's a lead developer, enterprise architect or design or whomever, also be a part of that strategy. Yeah. So that we get an overarching understanding of, number one, the feasibility, right? If we're putting on our roadmap, we need to know, can we freaking do it, right? The usability, so from a design perspective, are our users going to be able to use this, right? And then from a product perspective, really understanding the, can we do it? And if not, how could we potentially do it? But all of those things impact strategy. Just putting in a freaking roadmap doesn't mean it can be done. We need to include all of these other components to even figure out if it's possible.
Yeah, well, this is what I was saying super early in the podcast when I was trying not to stick my foot in my mouth. For some reason, I don't know why. But the product owner will say, well, hand it off to your development manager and they'll figure out whether they can do it, or hand it off to whatever. That's not the PM strategy. The PM strategy is, hey, we want to do something and we don't need to guess. We want to know that if we do it, it's going to be a hit. Start ticking all the Marty Kagan boxes. Is it usable? Well, would the customers actually use it? Okay, well, maybe you can do some wireframes, or maybe you can do some real low-hanging stuff that doesn't take a long time. I mean, if you learn Figma or another wireframing tool, once you're over the hump of learning it, it's pretty easy to work with. So now that's a tool in your toolbox to deploy. Hey, will the customers use it? Is it priced within their ability to pay? Is it priced correctly? You can do some experimentation with that. You can do some A/B testing with that. You can do some surveys with that. You can sign up people to use a feature before the feature is available. You can add fake door in your application. Facebook used to do that back in the day before they fired a bunch of people. Yes, I'm going to keep harping on that. No, I won't quit. Feasibility. Like, hey, we could redesign the entire app from the bottom up in whatever, different APIs, but like that would take us 6 months and we're just not willing to, so what can we do instead of that? Like, yes, we all know that's the right thing to do, and that would yield a much better result than we have now and keep our whatever servers from crashing whenever open enrollment happens, whatever.
Right, exactly.
Like, we know we could do that, but we're not willing to basically not introduce any new features for 6 months while the whole team takes the whole application offline and rebuilds the whole backend. That's not going to work for the business. The product manager would run around and then at the same time run around inside to all the internal stakeholders to say, what are support's biggest problems? What people calling up or emailing in or whatever? What are the sales' biggest problems? What's the biggest blockers keeping them from selling the application, keeping them from going to the next level? They probably have strong feelings. The different departments, like you just said, like if architecture or some kind of like senior engineering leadership is a separate like a team or department or something like that, like they probably have strong feelings. So the person who builds the strategy out of aligning everyone, they could be the same skill set, but in my career, they are not the same skill set. I started saying this, but I stopped saying it because nobody knows what I'm talking about. Where I say communicates like a doctor. The product manager communicates like a doctor, meaning when you go in for like an exam or whatever, the doctor always like narrates what they're doing before they do it.
They're like, telling you what right. I'm gonna touch you here.
They over communicate. Yes. They over communicate what they're about to do.
Right.
The product manager, I feel, if you start with that skill, this whole business strategy layer, everything we're talking about, is much easier. Whereas the base PO skills that I think of, like what you were talking about before, like the division between the two, there is a lot of overlap. A lot of overlap for me is in that operations category of things that you do. The overlap is not in the strategy swim lane of things that you do. And I would argue a lot of people who, like, even if it's their first time in the role of PO, the strategy skills, there's very little opportunity for them to practice those skills and to get better at those skills.
I'm living it.
For different reasons.
So I would say, too, in regards to product ownership and product management, there's this assumption, I think, that it's a career path. And what I'm realizing is, no, it's not. These are two very distinct, separate careers with very separate and distinct
skill sets?
I would say skill sets. So there is some overlap, and actually the personality types and the things in work that you are good at or that bring you joy may be completely different from a product owner to a product manager. They're very, very different, and typically, in my most recent experience, is drawing a very different type of personality to the role. And I'm not saying that you can't advance from product owner to a product manager, where sometimes that might be a natural progression, but I don't think that should be assumed. And again, this is contextual, has to do with how many products are you supporting, how many product owners are you supporting, how do they work. There's a lot of variables here, but I think I assumed for a very long time that this was a natural progression in regards to career progression, and what I'm realizing now is I don't believe that that's the case.
Hey, have you ever seen this from Melissa Perry's Build Trap? Associate PM is like someone who's in the product manager role for the first time, so it's probably the nearest equivalent of product owner, although you could sub product manager out for product owner in this as well, and I feel it'd be the same subset, but she's breaking things into at what level do you operate? Strategic, which is everything we're talking about, working with leadership, that kind of stuff, determining the future of your product. Operational, meaning just trying to land dates, figure out what team's going to work on what and when what we're going to prioritize. And tactical is working with the development team. And this is the percentage of time spent by the higher in seniority you go, the division of your time spent.
Gotcha.
You see a big divide here where at the director of product level, like she has a senior PM is spending 50% of their time straddling the tactical and the strategic. Almost, because they're still doing a bit of operations. I would argue that they're probably doing, a senior PM is probably doing less operations, But at the lower level, you're working mostly, almost all with the development team.
Okay.
You know, that's basically what she's outlining here. Whereas when you're at the VP of product level, you're basically you're lining up dates, driving the organization, telling people when they're going to get their stuff done, how much stuff's going to cost, and determining the future. That's like a 50-50 part of your job. Whereas you're not working with any one specific team on low-level features ever.
Yeah.
And that was her division out of the Build Trap, out of the book.
Yeah.
The Build Trap.
And it does make perfect sense. And then when you look, for instance, at the product owner, I'll refer to Bob Galen and his quadrants of product ownership, one of those quadrants being product management. And needing to, that's where that overlap is, really needing to understand that and work with, if you have a product manager, or if not, owning that piece of it.
Yeah.
And that usually depends on the size of the company.
Yeah, it depends on the culture of your company.
Yeah.
Because if your company is stuck in this command and control, and they feel giving up any of this stuff is I don't know, a detriment in some way, shape, or form. Like, I can't answer why people are the way they are, right? Like, I don't know what kind of damage they have in their life or whatever. This brings us into the last category: continuous discovery. The podcast we did not too long ago, where we were talking about burnout, where we were reading a post from a PM who we think probably was pretty burnt out. They probably don't do a lot of continuous discovery. They probably don't do a lot of, what's the business problem you're trying to solve? Well, let me do a couple little trials. Let me put some things out there into the ether and see what hits. And then, depending on what comes back positively, we'll go down that road. Let me try a few things. They probably don't do that. They probably just are completely like, what's the next order? Okay, I'll cook a cheeseburger. Okay, I'll cook a cheeseburger. What's the next order? Oh, you want some fries? Okay, I'll cook some fries. That is probably what they do. And their company's 100% happy with them doing that, because the culture is, hey, just do what I tell you to do. Don't question me. Don't question me.
Yeah, completely get that. Yeah, so they're not empowered. I mean, there is no empowerment for them. And I have struggled with this at many companies, where I feel like, from a product ownership perspective in particular, I need to understand my customers or users, right? So if I have a product manager, they need to understand the customers. They need to be a SME in that application. They need to understand the problems. They need to be able to advocate for them and be able to translate that and answer any questions that might come up for our development team when they're trying to solve for these problems. Because I'm going to give them, here's the problem we're trying to solve. You need to figure out the how, and they're going to have questions, and I need to be well-versed in being able to answer those questions.
Let's say, for example, if I was a director of product or VP of product, and I were hiring product managers, and somebody came through who their career progression, they started as a product owner, and now they were making the transition, I would definitely ask them to tell me about a situation where somebody brought you a feature to build. Somebody asked you to build a feature for them. And tell me, did you build a feature for them, or did you challenge them on it? And if you challenged them on it, tell me what you did, because I would expect, I'm going to show all my cards for the purposes of this conversation. What I'm expecting is, in the product owner job role, I would expect asking, why am I going to build that? I would expect that is not appreciated. Number one, let's put my own experience in this category aside for a second, because someone will be like, Brian, you don't know what you're talking about. Companies would never ask that. Well, surprise, I think we know who we're talking about now. I was that when I was in the product owner position. Like, why are you asking why? I'm telling you to do it. That's why. Because your boss said that you should do it. That's why. And then they'll make it a big thing, right? The difference here is, if you're a product owner as a job role, your mind doesn't immediately switch to continuous discovery as a mindset of what makes you think that is what we should build now. Instead of getting straight to work building it and designing architecture and doing whatever, I need to get to work validating that that is the top thing we should do. So I need to work backwards from the feature that you told me, Mr. Internal User or Mr. VP or Mr. C-level executive or whatever. I need to work backwards from what you told me to get to the business problem, to validate the business problem, to then work forward to a solution that will solve that problem, all the while experimenting, getting data and stats, and then making this decision with you based on the data available. That negotiation, driving, all kinds of stuff, I would expect someone with the job title of PO who's in the PO role for a Scrum team, I would expect they don't have a lot of experience going through what I just talked about. Whereas someone who's moving over from a PM role in another company, I'd ask them the same question to start. I ask them the same question, but I would expect that they already have the skill at negotiation and the skill at dealing with stakeholders and the ability to operate at a strategic level. That's what I'm trying to say. The ability to operate at a strategic level, which is where I need them to be in order to make continuous discovery stick and continue to be a part of the culture at the company, which I'm trying to encourage as a director of product. Are you searching for answers right now? Because there's going to be no answers on the internet for
No, I'm not. I'm not searching for answers. No, I agree with you. The situation that I walked into now with the company that I'm working with, by the way, I'm super excited about. We have a lot to work on. But we have great people, we have a great product, and I have leadership that I am feeling really confident that are on board to make this change, right? So, but as it is right now, it is a list of requests, service enhancement. So service requests, enhancement requests, no questions asked, just sent in and put into a backlog that isn't prioritized by any one person. They haven't had anybody in product, so I'm here to fix this. And then they just work top to bottom.
Companies that I have seen that are like that, it's usually a technical person who is in charge of the list that you just specified. And usually when I have come into those companies, the technical person is relieved to be like, oh, thank goodness I have a product person to answer all the when's this going to be done, where's the priorities, what's going to be done in what order, because I want to get back to architecture and development and building a better system, and I have no interest in doing all this stuff. Basically, I find a developer sitting in a product position who the company has not worked to get them any of the skills that product people have. That the individual person has not gone in. Like, there's a certain part of this, somebody might be screaming at the video and be like, well, it's just your personal responsibility to go get the skills that you need and to succeed in the job or whatever. I'm like,
you're already buried working 70 hours a week.
That's what I'm saying.
Keep your head above water, man.
To a point, I understand the argument, but also that's the same way I feel as like the product manager / product owner who has 6 teams. It's like, well, you should take it on your personal responsibility to do as best as possible to serve all the teams, and you can ask for all the help you want, but what's going to happen when the company goes 6 months trying to hire another product, make the budget thing and send it to the leadership team and get it voted on by the shareholders and blah, 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 get the position funded. Meanwhile, you got 6 teams for 6 months. Everything I'm talking about with like, oh, well, you should be doing continuous discovery. You should be vetting like ideas. You should be, what makes you think? What makes you think we should be doing that? Like those kind of good practices and everything I'm talking about. When you're overloaded, those good practices are the first things to go by the wayside.
Absolutely.
Same thing with talking to customers and validating. Like, the other thing that goes by the wayside is, he's freaking me out. The other thing that goes by the wayside is, what kind of shoes that guy wearing? The other thing that goes by the wayside is when you release features, following up with customers to talk about, hey, what did you like? What didn't you like? Let me run some surveys.
Wow.
Like that's the other thing that goes by the wayside.
Optimization? Amazing.
Just verifying with your customers, like, hey, what we released, did it solve your problem? Like, give me some metrics. Let's talk. That's another thing, because you're just like trying to throw features out as quickly as possible and just move on to the next fire. You don't care. Until they start complaining again, you're on to the next fire.
If you're not giving the resources and you're not giving the trust to your team, PO included, they're part of the team, and you are overextending them, shortcuts will be made, because that's the only way to move forward. And you are going to put out a crappy product that will become exponentially more crappy.
We're all the way back to the beginning of the podcast now, where we're talking about the difference between like a PO. You're going to be assigned a team. Like, hey, this is your team now, or your teams now. Like, that's the difference between them and a product manager. Product manager is probably going to lobby to say, hey, my team is working on several different products now. It's time to split the team and to split the backlog, to have 2 different product backlogs, because these products are very different. They're probably going to be the ones lobbying to say, hey, we need to split the finances of these products. We need to, because maybe the market is not the same. Maybe the customers are not the same anymore. Maybe, hey, the customer B is in a different market and they've adopted this product because it kind of works for them, but it doesn't really work. Like, we should split the team. We should split the finances. We should, I don't know, give them a white label app or whatever it is, and give them their own stream of development and features and whatever. PM is more likely than the PO in my experience here, what we're talking about, to lobby for that.
I'll just clarify, and that is a good PM. So here's the reason that I say that is because I've worked with PMs who are just yes men or women, and maybe they're trying to climb the ladder, maybe they're padding their resume, maybe they just don't know how to do their job. I mean, I don't know. But they end up being the enemy of the product because they aren't being the ones that are recognizing and buffering and finding the opportunities to make our product better. They're just making the sales and the marketing and the leadership team, and they're feeding, they're just basically rolling all this stuff down to product or to devs to do because they said so.
Oh boy, you're cutting into a whole nother podcast that I want to have. I don't know if it'll actually be useful to anyone, but like, it sounds like all the people I work with who were marketing people who got hired into the PM role and didn't actually know how to do it. Like, or a diagram that I showed earlier with the tactical and the operations and the strategic, like they're in the strategic category, but now they have development teams. They don't know how to do the other category. They never did it in their career. They never did the other. Or I think of like MBA grads who become PMs out of school. They don't know how to do any of the categories, quite honestly. So it's another podcast. I kind of want to keep it out of this podcast just to not muddy the waters and figure out what I want to say on the topic rather than just harping on them all night.
It was page 6 if you want to see it. But this is Bob Galen's, but I believe this is from his version 1, but he's actually in version 2 added a 5th quadrant, which I know that makes no sense, but it's self-care.
So product manager, leader, project manager, business analyst.
Yep.
I'll show this on the screen when we cut the podcast. But under his number 1 product manager category, and like, because I say this to my leadership all the time, I can't invent a strategy for you. Like if your leadership has no strategy, I can try to kill it. Like I'll go out and die on the battlefield for you. But like if you have no strategy, it's going to show. The team's going to know it. The customer's going to know it. Everyone's going to know it. So in category 1, you have to run a good business. So that's like where I thought you were going to go with the product owner thing, where you're looking out for the ROI of the product. But you need to know what good business metrics are. And I would say a lot of times POs are not exposed to what makes a good business metric. Hey, how easy is it for someone, whatever, off the street, whatever, to pick up, subscribe, start using, and start paying for our application? Like basically, and what is the cost that we incur whenever we bring on a new user? Do we have to go, like back in like 2000, in like the mid 2000s, when you had to go run out and install servers in a rack and go send an engineer with whatever, a hard drive in their pocket to go install the software? Like the cost to acquire literally was thousands of dollars to set up a new user. Like, is it that? And the speed as well. You know what I mean? Like it takes you 2 weeks because you got to fly out there and you got to schedule and they got to do this and they got to do that. So there are some business metrics, that the good product managers will keep an eye on. I want to go down the road that you've kind of opened the gate and show, hey, look, here's the road we can go down of what makes product managers bad, burnt out product managers. Like, you're right. Like, they could already come in not with the right skill. They could come in for bad reasons. Management does this a lot with the higher the position in product management, the kind of hit or miss they do this with, because private equity firms will do that all the time. They'll hire a chief product officer who has no product management experience at all.
Fortunately, I've never worked for a private equity.
Okay, well,
I stay in healthcare. That's good for me.
If your product person is a salesperson, if you go look at their background, it's all sales positions, you have a big problem. All right, well, I don't know how much of this in this last bit of the podcast I'm going to leave in, because we got dark near the end. But moving from a product owner job role to a product manager job role.
So I told you my thoughts in regards to the progression, if that was a natural or progression from product owner to product manager. Do you feel like that's the case?
It could be. It could be. Like, I got my start as a product owner. But again, like my experience was, hey, you got an idea for the product? Well, great job, kid. The adults will take it from here. That was the way it was handled at that company. Because the product management aspects, they didn't want someone to do that job because of the command and control nature of the hierarchy of that organization.
Where they actually use a product manager as a manager of people.
Yes.
Yeah, which is completely different.
Yes, that organization would have been that way, right? And I did a product owner there, and I became a product manager at the next company, because that it set me on a path to say, like, well, this is kind of silly. Like, I am the person who most interacts with customers and the features and the product, and I am taking the vision and direction and bringing it down. Like, why am I not involved in all this stuff that I know best, because I live it every day? And I started looking at trainings, I started looking at literature, I started reading books, and I started realizing, like, oh, no, I'm not crazy. This is actually the way it's supposed to be. So I went and got a proper job as a product manager where I'm involved in both. The advantage there is because I could do the tactical level very well, because again, my previous role, they specifically tried to keep me in the tactical and out of the strategy. I was very good at the tactical. So I could concentrate more on the operations and the strategy side of the job, because I knew that is where I needed to learn and mature in those areas of my job. But I could see starting out as a PM and having to learn everything when you're not artificially being kept of any one of the categories for quite literally no reason. There's no reason to keep somebody out of the category. I sort of have the internal viewpoint, but I sort of don't, because like internal meaning the division, meaning the PO is the one who's dealing with the development team on a day-to-day basis. That's the role to the development team. But then the rest of the stuff that you do throughout the organization, out to customers, all that stuff, those are aspects of the PM job. Whereas my opinion on this is, whereas you can divide them. I think of scaling as the perfect example of places that I've seen that have divided this role, where they have one person that is basically the conduit to customers. They have all the relationships already, probably because they've worked there a long time. They're the business domain subject matter expert already, and they know the software pretty well, but they have so many development teams that they just can't be with the teams at all. So they hire product owners to help them, but those product owners end up, like, their careers either come up through QA, or their careers come up through development, or their career comes up through business analysis a lot of time, or project management sometimes. But basically, they come on as product owners, and they're told to extend the product manager they work for, extend the product manager's capability with all the development teams that are working on the product, because there are many, right, at the same time. And that's how the business splits things. The better model would be for, instead of calling them product owners and then keeping them out of strategy and just having them talk to the one product manager to get their strategy, the better model would be to call them product managers or associate product managers and note that like they're just getting their start, stuff like that. And to call the product manager in that example either a senior product manager or a group product manager for the whole application. Okay. And then to not play games with titles, because usually the big difference, I'm amazed we haven't talked about this, the big difference usually that I've observed between product owner and product manager is about $20,000. That's the big difference.
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah. So what I would expect in that, where people are like, oh, I'm just going to get a business analyst and retitle them as product owner and have them work and basically do their full job as business analyst, kind of keep them out of strategy, kind of keep them out of talking to customers, except like, I don't know, when they're doing their demo with the rest of the teams or whatever. But I'm going to keep, the real thing is I'm going to keep my budget real low because they're not real product managers.
Okay. I have recently tried to find research on transitioning from product owner to product manager.
Yep.
There is very little, almost nothing out there. There's no books, there's no, and so given the fact that you were a product owner into product manager, do you have any suggestions or any particular, books or that you can think off the top of your head that really helped you when you were kind of researching and trying to figure out how to be the best product manager you could be given the lack of experience you had in that role coming from a product owner perspective?
I would start leaning into, first of all, I would be clear with people when you go through interviews of why. They would be like, hey, it looks like you don't have well, assuming that they are knowledgeable enough to even ask, because a lot of companies are just not knowledgeable. I would be straight with them to say, why are you looking, why are you looking to change or whatever. They'll ask you that question in an interview. To be straightforward with them, they'll be like, look, I know that in order for my career to progress, I've got to get to the strategy layer. Like I'm being kept out of the strategy layer in my organization because of whatever organizational blockers, the culture, the leadership team, the fact that they're waterfall. I don't know, a million reasons, right? To say, look, I'm looking to expand my skill set. If you're in a PO role, anybody who is a PM or is like a group PM or a larger, has other PMs in the organization, they probably will understand that like you don't have a lot of opportunity to be involved in strategy. You need to be in the right type of culture to gain that experience with strategy. That's what I'm trying to say. It took me a while to get there. And to be open about that. Like what can you read to like what I would say is what I was like I inspired by Marty Kagan is a book I tell everybody.
Right.
Everybody. I'm like you got to read
Empowered,
that.
Inspired and empowered.
You should know like the gold standard of the and people online and stuff will be like, oh, it's not really reality. I was like, it doesn't have to be reality. It has to be a good goal that you're shooting for. And if you can do it where you can, your leadership probably will be really happy with you to be doing a little bit of it, as opposed to just being like, what do you want to build next? Okay, well, and then the metrics turn out, where you didn't really make an improvement. And then if you read that book and it does it, you're like, wow, I don't understand how to apply any of this. Like the Escaping the Build Trap that we just were talking about, the Melissa Perry book that we were talking about, that would be the next one, because that one is more tactical than inspired. And that book gives you a good understanding of the divisions of your roles, and she will walk you through like, well, you should be involved in these activities and this is how it should lend itself. And at that point you should start realizing like, oh, this person is in control of that at my company. And between those two books, you should know enough to say, we don't really experiment and try things. We just do what people tell us.
Yep.
And then if you're operating that way and you have that like moment of inspiration from reading those two books, you probably also realize that you're separated from talking to customers. Artificially separated from talking to customers,
or intentionally so.
Yeah, intentionally so, right? And now we get into the question of like, well, can you overcome that at your current organization? Like, maybe you can. Maybe you really like where you work. I don't think I've ever, like in the almost 100 episodes on the podcast, I don't think I've ever had a story of like, I did this, then I did X, and then I did Z, and then I changed the culture of my organization from top to bottom. And they said, yes, we're going to completely. I don't think we've yet had a story like that.
Yeah. So,
I would say like open your mind, be open to learning, be open to see what's out there. And when you're looking for that leap, because it's not, you're right. It's not a step ladder progression, stair step progression. It's not. It is a leap to say, hey, I need to get out of the tactical and jump into being involved in the strategic and operational across the organization. I'm glad you brought this up because this is a super interesting topic that could be a whole nother podcast. When I say it's a leap, you're actively looking to leap out of the tactical and leap up to where your VPs and maybe your directors, if you're larger organizations, your directors, coming up with vision. Or pitching a new product. Hey, like the example I used before, where hey, we need to divide these set of features. They're really, I'm seeing it from the metrics. They're different users, they're different use cases, whatever. Maybe they're different databases on the back end. Maybe it's easy to draw a dividing line. You're making the case to say we should offer a new product line. We should rebrand this and offer a new product line with these new features. We could price it differently. That strategy should come from the people who know the product the best, and those people are the product managers for that product, I would hope.
Or should be.
Or should be. So
there's no book to tell you how to learn that. And the only way that you can learn that in regards to market strategy, pricing, all of that is really time on the job.
To do it, right.
Yeah, you've got to do it. And you've got to be with people, hopefully, who know how to do it right. You have some mentor, or you have somebody who's, or just trying and failing, and hopefully you've got a company that's, but mentoring would be the better option.
Yeah, you labeled it as mentoring. I'm labeling it as sponsorship.
Okay.
Sponsorship and mentoring could be the same thing, but they could be completely different. There's a lot of times I hear like, well, we have somebody who's sponsoring Agile in leadership. So one person in leadership, right? When that person goes away, Agile goes away, right? The point is, the person who's sponsoring, like, hey, we need to be product led. Like we're getting killed, we're getting creamed in our market that we're dominating. And we went from 90% market down to 50% market, and next year we're projected to go down to 30% market, whatever. And you've got somebody on your executive team going, we need product people because all of our competitors are product led, and it's easy to sign up or whatever. And I see the decline, I see where we're going. You have somebody in the leadership who's sponsoring that change.
So I think the difference in my mind between sponsorship and mentorship is accountability. So if they're sponsoring you, they hold some level of accountability. Mentorship, not so much.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to think about that, because that's a different podcast. I don't know how deep I want to go into that one. I mean, it's an interesting one. I read a book on that recently. I'll tell you when the podcast.
I really haven't read that. That was totally out of Stormy's brain.
I'm
a freaking genius.
No.
Should have wrote the book.
Yes, yeah.